Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a misunderstood, underrated, and fairly rare model built briefly from 2015 through 2020. This is the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39. This is the reference 114300, and it was superseded by the 41. This is no longer available. So the timepiece uses the short-lived 39mm Oyster Perpetual case. That's the diameter. The watch measures 11.2 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 47.3 millimeters from end link to end link. It is 49 millimeters across the wrist with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Pop it open. And you can see the watch wears easily on my wrist of 16 centimeters circumference. The 41 wears quite large indeed. So if you want something that's a unisex option, a larger watch for a lady, a more discreet watch for a man, this is going to be the choice over the 41. It's super flat with a domed bezel, so it slides easily underneath a cuff. I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. Now, taking a look at the case and the bracelet, the Oyster Perpetual is a long-lived Rolex model. Originally created in 1933, it blended the 1926 Oyster water-resistant case with 1933's Perpetual rotor winding system, so a water-resistant automatic watch. It has been in the collection ever since. One could argue it is not only the archetype of the modern Rolex watch, but it is also a trendsetter that helped to establish the parameters for all sports watches that came after. Now, Rolex has its own foundry. It makes its own cases, bracelets, and clasps, and yes, it makes its own steel. Although some other brands do use 904L steel, very few do. Rolex uses it universally, calling it oyster steel. It's not harder than standard 316, but it is more resistant to corrosion, particularly in the presence of sweat or sea salt. You don't need to rinse it. In that regard, it's like Zinn U-boat steel. Taking a quick look, you can see the Oyster bracelet, and that is the Oyster bracelet. It is designed to integrate with the case via a conforming end link. Then it has a little bit of a taper to it, a 3-link staggered link design. The flanks are polished, and we have removable links fixed by screws on both sides of the clasp, so you'll be able to fine-tune the size there. We have 3 divots drilled inside the clasp, and you can use your strap tool to change the positioning of the spring bar internally to fine-tune the fit here. This is the Oyster Perpetual. The way things are for this generation, we have a stamped 5-point Rolex coronet rather than a raised, relieved, and polished one. We have a lift lock system with a beak and a hook, so the one latches into the other just like that, and you have to lift and unlock to open it. Internally, we have a thick gauge steel single folding deployant. And then the case, well, Gerald Genta once opined that if he had one great regret about a watch he wished he could have designed, he's on the record saying he wished he designed the Rolex Oyster, and this is it. You can see the lug hoods are satinated, the case flanks are polished, and the lugs are actually quite graceful, coming to a tapered point. The bezel is domed, as has long been the convention for Oyster Perpetuals since the days of the bubble backs, so named because the case back was extended to include the then new rotor winding system. We have a twin lock crown in steel. We know that because it has that little slash at the bottom. Rolex crowns have symbols that tell you the material and the style. So this is a twin lock in steel, screw down, 100 meters, water resistant. Not only water resistant, not only steel, not only automatic, but well loomed. And you can see right there, loomed at 3 corners plus the hour and minute hands. Now taking a quick look at the dial, it is a blue metallic sunburst. Crown, hands, and indices are all white gold, so they won't tarnish, oxidize, or fade over time. And we have spectacular signal green indices outboard of the applique indices. It's a good look. You can see the baton hands at center are actually faceted down their center for better contrast against the dial base. As with Oyster cases generally, solid case back and inside, we have Rolex manufacturer caliber 3132, bidirectional automatic winding, 48-hour power reserve. It has a hacking seconds or stop seconds function, pivots on 31 joules, beats at an 8 beat per second rate, and it is a certified COSC Swiss chronometer. But there's more. It features an overcoil hairspring made by hand so that in any position, the bare movement or the fully assembled watch will keep outstanding time, the better to pass the COSC chronometer testing. That overcoil hairspring is shaped by hand and made of a blue oxidized niobium zirconium alloy Rolex calls Parachrom Blue. It is highly anti-magnetic. Bracing against shock, we have a full balance bridge with a free sprung balance, and these two features make the watch very stable in the face of concussion or shock on the wrist, with the free sprung architecture of the balance also allowing for a very precise adjustment, so this watch will run to outstanding timing tolerances. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.